For decades, McDonald's has been one of the most powerful and recognizable brands on Earth. I mean, they've served, quite literally, billions and billions of customers. But how? How does a company actually get to that kind of scale and dominance? Well, I can tell you, it's not by accident. It's by design. And today, we're going to break down that exact blueprint.
So let's just start with one single massive number, 50,000. By the end of 2027, McDonald's plans to be operating 50,000 restaurants around the globe. This is not a company that's just resting on its laurels. It is a machine built for relentless, nonstop growth. The ambition in that number alone tells you pretty much everything you need to know about their mindset.
And really, the golden arches are the perfect symbol for that ambition. You can spot them on pretty much any continent, but they stand for so much more than just a place to grab a burger. They represent this meticulously crafted system, a really powerful business strategy that hasn't just defined McDonald's, but has actually reshaped huge parts of our modern world. So, what is that strategy?
To really get the system, first we've got to look at their own playbook. This comes straight from their 2024 annual report, and it's a strategy they call accelerating the arches. This is their official blueprint for growth and dominance, right from the source.
What's so interesting here is just the sheer confidence. I mean, this quote from their report, it isn't just boring corporate speak, it's a declaration. They believe they have a winning formula, and it's built on the advantages of being an absolute giant. They know exactly how powerful they are, and they are leaning into it hard.
What's really crucial is how they structure this whole playbook. It all breaks down into three core pillars, which they cleverly named MCD. First, you've got maximizing their marketing. Think about those viral moments like the Grimace Shake. Second, a commitment to their core menu. They're focusing on the classic stuff people already know and love. And third, something they call doubling down on the 4Ds.
And here they are, the 4Ds. Each one of these is a laser-focused push to make the McDonald's experience as easy and accessible as humanly possible. Digital, that's their massive loyalty program. Delivery, bringing the food right to you. Drive-through, optimizing every single second for speed. And development, well, that's that huge push to get to 50,000 stores. It's all about total convenience and total reach.
Okay, so we see the what. The corporate strategy is pretty clear. But that doesn't really explain the why. Why is this model so incredibly powerful? Not just for McDonald's, but for countless other businesses that have copied it. To get that, we need to look way beyond the annual report and dig into a really powerful sociological theory. And this brings us to the work of sociologist George Ritzer. He's the one who coined the term for this powerful system that McDonald's pioneered, the McDonaldization of society. He argued that this wasn't just a business model, it was basically becoming the invisible operating system for modern life itself.
So here's the core definition. Ritzer saw that the whole logic of the fast food restaurant, that intense focus on speed, efficiency, and standardization, was starting to spread everywhere, from how we shop to how we get educated. It was this new, powerful kind of rationalization that was just quietly changing everything.
Ritzer broke this whole system down into 5 key principles. First, efficiency, finding the absolute fastest path from point A to point B, from hungry to fed. Predictability, making sure a Big Mac in Tokyo tastes exactly like one in Ohio, no surprises. Calculability, focusing on quantity over quality. Then substitution, using technology to replace unpredictable human workers. And finally, control over both employees and customers, just to make sure the system runs like a machine. Okay, now let's connect the dots here. In the report, McDonald's talks a lot about value, but when you look at it through Ritzer's lens, that translates directly to calculability. As he famously put it, the emphasis is on the Big Mac, which is a measure of quantity, not the Good Mac, a measure of quality. You know exactly how much you're getting, but whether or not it's actually good is kind of a secondary thought. And here's another direct link. McDonald's says it wants to use tech to drive speed and efficiency. Ritzer's framework identifies this as the substitution of non-human technology. Think about it. Drink dispensers that shut off by themselves, buzzers that tell you when the fries are done. These aren't just for speed. They're about replacing human judgment with machines to guarantee perfect consistency and exert total control over the entire process. But Ritzer also pointed out this deep paradox in this system, and he called it the irrationality of rationality. The idea is that these hyper-rational, super-efficient systems, like an assembly line that never stops or a call center script that never changes, can often create outcomes that are dehumanizing, unreasonable, and, at the end of the day, totally irrational.
Which brings us to a huge real-world example of that irrationality in action. Let's take a look at what happened when this powerful system was basically put on trial. The McLabel case was one of the longest, most infamous legal battles in British history, and it pitted this massive corporation against two activists who just dared to criticize its practices. Just look at this timeline. It's wild. This case dragged on for nearly 20 years. In 1986, two activists in London hand out a leaflet. 4 years later, McDonald's sues them. The trial itself becomes the longest in English history. This wasn't just a court case, it was a war of attrition, a real David versus Goliath story.
And the verdict? Wow, it was stunning. While McDonald's technically won on a few legal points, the judge's findings were absolutely damning. The court ruled that it was, in fact, true that McDonald's did exploit children with its advertising. That was a direct validation of one of the activists' biggest claims. And this is where the ugly side of the system was really laid bare for everyone to see. The court also found that the company was culpably responsible for causing unnecessary cruelty to animals. Now, this wasn't just an activist's opinion anymore. This was the finding of a high court judge. It was a direct consequence of a system that prioritizes efficiency and quantity above all else in its massive supply chain.
And this picture really illustrates the central tension, doesn't it? On one hand, you have a court validating these really serious ethical concerns, and on the other, the products themselves remain incredibly popular. It's a perfect example of that irrationality of rationality. A lot of us are aware of the system's downsides, but its promise of efficiency, predictability, and value, well, it often wins out. All right, so let's widen the lens a bit, because this blueprint, this McDonaldized system, it's not just about McDonald's anymore. It has become the standard operating procedure for huge parts of the modern economy. You can see these principles everywhere. After struggling for a while, Burger King radically simplified its menu to focus almost entirely on the Whopper. That's a classic move to boost efficiency and predictability. Shake Shack, which markets itself as higher quality, still uses industrial time motion studies to make its kitchens hyper-efficient. And even newer chains like Cava use that assembly line model. The blueprint just works, so everyone copies it.
So, what we're really looking at here is a system that has completely jumped the fence from being one company's strategy to becoming a fundamental part of our culture. It's in how we shop online, how we travel, even how we learn. The principles of McDonaldization are so deeply embedded in our daily lives now that a lot of the time we don't even notice them. Which really leaves us with one final question to think about. Now that you can recognize the principles of this blueprint, that constant drive for maximum efficiency, total predictability, and absolute control, start to look around. Where else do you see it at work in your world? I think the answer might just surprise you.